Okay, so hopefully you watched the last video that was for Monday's lecture, which was a detailed explanation of the MBTI concept, as well as looking at the history of personality theory. Recognizing that that whole presentation was based on communication studies, which takes information from psychology. Maybe a little bit different from how you understood it if you were, for instance, in Ms. Trevaro's psychology class, although there's also quite a few similarities. So if you have not watched it, I encourage you to watch it, even if you did not complete discussion forum B, all right? If you want to still complete a Myers-Briggs type indicator questionnaire, all you have to do is send me an email with the numbers and the letters. So the letters and the numbers, which is the results after you take that little questionnaire. I will then give you the same information I'm going to talk about with our class who did complete that today, so that you can have the benefit of the same kind of information. You will not get discussion forum points, but if you respond as Megan did, then you could get some extra credit points, and extra credit is always helpful. So today, before we get into the deep content, I do want you to be reminded that your 3 topic proposals are coming due on Sunday, all right? You should have 3 separate paragraphs all on one document that you upload. Make sure your name is at the top of that document. The instructions are pretty clear, but if you have any questions, I need you to ask, please, so that I can clear up any misideas or confusion you might have. So I'm going to look over here, and does anybody have any questions? All right, so you know what you're going to talk about. You know what 3 proposals you're going to put together and what IPC terms you want to use and what countries, okay, the topic of the people where you want to study, yes? All right, well, that's your ticket to leave today. So before you can leave class at the end of our session, you are going to need to tell me, what are you thinking about doing? What are you considering in terms of your countries, the types of IPC theories that interest you, as well as the people. Who are the people within those countries that you want to study? So be thinking about that. That's going to be your exit. Okay. Don't forget, all extra credit and the second attempt for your Module 2 test must be completed by the 4th. And then we're going to wrap up and jump into the next module, which will go quite a bit faster than this first module. All right, so let's take a look at what we're going to do today. I want us to continue to look at some key terms that are listed in your textbook under section 2.4. But I also want to expand your language and your understanding of concepts and some theories that go beyond the textbook. So I'm going to introduce some concepts to you that are not necessarily in the textbook, but you should know, that will help you in strategies for managing your self-esteem or raising your self-esteem, or helping others to raise their self-esteem, okay, or to build good positive self-perceptions. Now, there are strategies, and there are some strategies that are highly meaningful and some that are a little kind of like, oh yeah, well, we all do those. Well, we're going to look at a few of them that I have found to be particularly valuable for all of those of you who are going to be using interpersonal communication skills professionally and within the family unit, all right? So we're going to be talking about some strategies. And then we're going to also look at schemata, right? And schemata and schema. And we're also going to look at scripts and the idea that you are your own change agencies, all right? The locus of control is inside you. You are able to make changes, all right? So even though the MBTI report is very interesting, it is only predispositions for certain behaviors or certain comfort zones. It is only a fairly accurate prediction of where you will excel and where you may struggle. But all of it is going to be things that you can look at, that you can utilize and make conscious decisions, okay? And I'm a living proof of that. So what we're going to do is actually look at one together. You may pull up in your email your own report that I sent you if you did it, or you may follow along with me, and I'm going to pull up one. To give you an example of what they look like. All right. I'm going to use the INFJ because that's my own personal report. And some of you may have this, some of you obviously will not. There are 16 different MBTI types, all right? And if you watch the video, you'll notice that we went from Carl Jung to looking at that which was developed based on Carl Jung's work into the Myers-Briggs type indicator for leadership development during wartime in the United States. And then we look at what happened in the 60s and 70s with a guy named Keirsey, who said, I want to take this information and I want to see if I can apply it to help people in counseling be better counselors, right? And so a lot of what he put together then evolved into the Isaacson and Barron's information, which is what I'm showing here on the screen, and is the report that I gave you. Now, as a consultant working with executive leadership, I have to coach a whole lot of people on helping them to improve their performance on the job, but also to improve what's known as their emotional intelligence. And their emotional intelligence is that which tells them how, when, where, and who to communicate, so that they are picking the right information at the right time, in the right quantities, depending on the relationship, to protect or maintain or to create a healthy relationship. So there's a lot of that stuff going on. And that might be a very interesting theory that you might want to look at, which is emotional intelligence. Okay, so let's look at what you see here for right now. First of all, you're going to see at the very top, there are the letters that are spelled out. And as I explained in the video, there is a continuum, and we're going to use the I and the E as the example. And within the continuum is a neutral 0 point, and then the arrows go outwards from that neutrality. In one direction, in this instance, it represents the I just had a blank. It's the introverted, okay. It's the introverted type versus the extroverted type, all right? And I have what's known as a high degree of clarity. That means that I am very aware of what are my preferences and to get myself energized for the next day of meetings or training or teaching or whatever, I need to introvert. I need to go inside myself. And one of the ways that I know I have a high degree of clarity is because my numbers are in the 80s. So when you're looking at the numbers on the report, the numbers indicate how clear you are on what you prefer, what are you aware of, all right? The lower your number, if your number was, let's say, 10, then you don't necessarily have a high degree of clarity or self-awareness that there's one over the other. All right, and that doesn't mean a bad thing at all. It just means that possibly it's highly situationally determined, in which case then you would rather be one way under circumstances and another under other circumstances, okay? Versus the E. So all of this is a 0, right, with a 10 to 100. And those are what your numbers mean. Well, all of you who got E's, and I'm looking, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 of you in this class out of the 20 came up with, who decided to do this discussion forum. And out of the 8 who completed it, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 I's, introverts, okay, as opposed to extroverts. So one of the reasons why you probably like this class, in fact, there's so much online, is that you don't have to talk. If you are an E, you are an extrovert and you get your energy by interacting with people, COVID-19, this is like a nightmare to you because you are not able to get recharged and energized and feel good about things by interacting with others because of our social distance, etc. I bet E's are relying a lot on Instagram and Snapchat and all those other things. All right, so that's what your letters mean. And each of those letters have different explanations, which I provided for you in that email and the PowerPoint that's posted, and it's in the video. But now I want you to look down, and I want you to see that there is what's known as a work label. And I also listed all of the work labels in the PowerPoint. So you can see how your work label is different or similar to all the others. And this is this is the Isaacson and Barron's evolution of what Kiersey and the others did. So there is, again, a predisposition for people who are INFJs to like to foresee the future. You like to be somewhat visionaries, to predict, to plan for, to bring about positive things in the future, okay? Now I want you to look at underneath here. There are quite a few bullet points, and these bullet points really are important. So if you need some strategies for raising your self-esteem, I would, and I would take those list of those bullet items and I would put them on a 3x5 index card and I would put them in my planner, or I tape them to the bathroom mirror, or I would put it in a journal or a Bible or something that I look at often as a reminder of what I bring to the party, okay? So as an INFJ, these are my natural talents, being forceful quietly, very concerned about others. I like to serve the common good. That's very much a part of me being a public speaker teacher. I really want to make sure that everything I put together, I present with pride, and I present it at A quality work. Right? I do really, really good stuff. Not that I'm conceited, but I know my strengths. All right. But it also says I have a single-minded concentration. So that simply means that I have the ability to grab onto something and to see it through. So I started the Effective Communication Association last fall, and it's exciting, it's important, it continues to evolve. We now have a website, we now do video productions, we do podcasts, we do all kinds of things, right? For that greater good and some of those other things. So now you're going to look at your own report and you're going to see what are those top bulleted items, because those are the ones that you want to say, okay, all right, these are my gifts. These are my special talents. These are the things that when I go on a job interview, I want to bring forward so that the interviewer is going to see examples of these things by the answers to the questions that I give. Right? Now, you also notice that there are strengths and opportunities for growth. You notice it doesn't say strengths and weaknesses. No, we don't talk like that in communication studies. Because if we look at each one of us as being change agencies for ourselves, as well as change agents for others, then what we want to do is to help people recognize that change is so possible. And how you change is completely up to you and how you want to make it happen. All right. So if you were to look at the strengths on that list, there's a whole bunch of really good positive things. But I want you to look at the opportunities for growth. I am going to use me as an example. I think I've said these things to you before, but I'm going to say it again because it's true. I was the biggest bitch in the world in my early years of management. And when I was in my 30s, mostly in my 30s, late 20s, early 30s, I was managing large departments in fast food operations, and I had a lot of turnover in my department. I ran a training restaurant where we trained all of our franchisees, and I had a lot of people come and go, okay, high turnover. And if any of you know in business, that costs the company a lot of money. I also had people who would go and complain to me, to human resources, and say that I was difficult to work for, that I did not care, that they had lives outside of the job, that they have sick children once in a while that they have to take care of, and I was being totally inconsiderate of their work hours, etc. And it was ugly. It was ugly. To the point where I was counseled that if I didn't get my shit together, all those opportunities for growth were now going to become causes for termination. Right? So, it says opportunities for growth. I'm not always very objective, and I wasn't always being very flexible. I needed to work on that. I needed to change. Another one says I need to see beyond my own values. Well, my own values was I was going to climb that corporate ladder and I was going to be a VP by the time I was 40. Almost to the point where I didn't care who got in my way. Well, shame on me, because that clearly was biting me in the ass, and I needed to rethink that because I needed to work on shared values and getting my people as part of the team, right, et cetera, et cetera. So let me give you a success story. So through training and development, through attending some amazing workshops, such as the Center for Creative Leadership out of Charlotte, North Carolina, no, Raleigh, um, out of going back and getting a master's degree in communication studies, I was able to change. I was able to change to such a degree that I not only made the vice president role, but I also made a senior VP role. And through the process of where I was taking the company for people, managing over 1,000 people and being responsible for, now I was responsible for human resources and all those elements. I left on a high, and I left with my team loving me and actually being very sad that I was leaving. We sold the company, so it was time for me to move out and make way for the new leadership. But my send-off and my relationships that I kept with those people afterwards demonstrate that I had become a far better version of myself. And that was because I seized on those opportunities and changed. I worked on it, and it didn't happen overnight. It was a lot of work, a lot of mistakes, a lot of rethinking what I could have, should have done, and then improving the next time around. So over another 10 years into my 40s, I really became a pretty darn good manager, all right, based on tough feedback, based on these kinds of reports. So this data is extremely valuable, all right? So it looks, you can see over here, it says, as you continue to look at your report, there's a section there that says, to function best, this type of person needs, right? So it identifies what I need from my boss, what I need from my team, what I need from the company, the environment, the culture, all right? In order for me to be successful, I need these kinds of things that are identified. All right, but these are the things that are going to throw me into a tizzy. And the things that say frustrated by, these are the things that are going to make me walk backwards, think differently, question why do I have this job, question what in the world I'm doing here, and make me even start to think about maybe I need to get a job someplace else, all right? So when you are looking, or I am looking at, do I want to stay or go, I have to decide, can I put up with those things that frustrate me? Or can I help to make them change? Or can I communicate to my supervisor that these are some difficulties or struggles that I'm having to see how we might be able to work them out? Okay? So you can use this information to prompt you to have conversations for your own self-esteem, for your own benefit, okay? Now, the next one is really important. They irritate others by. All right, let me take out the word irritate. And let me say, this is how you piss people off. You need to hone in on that, and you need to look at that, especially if you have a job, and compare that to what your supervisors have said to you about areas that need improvement, all right? So I can irritate others by taking an emotional stand and being moralistic, okay? I know best. I say we do it this way. And or being too anxious to please, which means I take on too much work, I do too much, and in the process sometimes, because I'm trying to make everybody happy, I start to kill myself and I get sick or emotionally drained, all right? And it irritates people because they say, no, let others do the work, empower others, right? So keep this in mind. These are things that you need to work on. It also demonstrates what you value. And so these are the qualities when you are interviewing for a job of what you're looking for. And then you can also see how you serve best by working on a team. Now, you can also apply this information to a relationship. So my husband and I have looked at our Myers-Briggs type indicators, and we have compared where we're really different. All right. I am a very high J, and he is a very high P. All right. Which means we are at opposite ends of the spectrum. I am organized. I like to have a plan. I want to know where I'm going. And he is Mr. Air Math. Let's just kind of wing it. We'll get there when we get there. And as you can imagine, sometimes we have conflict with that. So it's a starting point for conversing with a significant other for points of compromise or points of discussion for some kind of mediation. Okay, so hopefully you were able to look at that. You got some insights into your own element of what you are about. And now what I want to do is switch gears to look at some concepts. Now, in your last video, it gives you definitions of schema and schemata, so I'm not going to go over that. But I do want to talk about the concept of scripts. Scripts are videotapes inside your head, or audio recordings inside your head, or flashbacks of signs or pictures, settings, all kinds of stuff. These can help you or they can pull you down. And part of having a good self-esteem and a strategy for raising that self-esteem is to focus and to remember mostly the positives. Not to rationalize the negatives, but to put them into context. And to say, yeah, that's a script, that was a behavior, that old bitch behavior that I had, that was real. I'm not going to explain it away. I'm going to accept responsibility for those behaviors. And by doing that, then I'm able to change. Okay? And that's all explained over on page 53. Other things that you can do is over on page 54 is they talk about something that's known as a self-fulfilling prophecy. There's two different ways of looking at that. There can be a positive and there can be a negative self-fulfilling prophecy. This is where you believe, all right, you have a script inside your brain that's going to cause you to speak and act in a certain way toward others and or toward yourself. All right, let me give you an example. Let's say that you are a manager and you have a day shift and a night shift. And your day shift is made up primarily of a whole lot of high school students, and they're all African Americans except for one. Okay? And you're white. And you have some inherent biases that you may not even be aware of, that the white guy is going to be smarter than the other kids. So what you do is you, without even being objective, place the white guy as a shift leader. Whereas the other employees were actually far better performers than that white guy. All right? But because you saw, you had a prophecy that the white guy was a better performer, you gave him easier workloads, you gave him more fun projects, which he did well at, but all you did was fulfill your own belief that he was going to do well. And as a consequence, you didn't give the African American teens an opportunity to excel. Okay? Now, on the night shift, it's a little bit different. On the night shift, you have 3 people who are seniors at university, and you have the rest of them who are high school graduates, no college whatsoever. You, or I, in this instance, I don't have a college degree, let's say. So those, kids, those young people trying to get their, university degrees, they think they're tough shit. While all these others who are working their bones off because they got kids to feed at home, and they are graduating from the school of hard knocks just like I did. So because of that, I'm going to cut them some slack, but I'm not going to the others. Okay? So I'm going to treat them differently, and I'm going to end up having probably the university employees quit and go someplace else, which then fulfills my responsibility that they're not worth investing in, all right? While the ones who are working very hard, and I'm really trying to accommodate, their schedules, their children, their illnesses, and everything else, because, I believe in them and they're going to come through just like I did, they're going to excel, all right? So this can be positive and negative, all right? And it means unequal treatment. Unequal treatment. So be very, very careful of self-fulfilling prophecies of others. Now, of yourself, it's the same thing. You can believe in yourself that you're going to fail, and then you fail. So you're going to say, oh man, philosophy is so hard. I'm not even going to bother worrying about this paper. I'm just going to do it last minute because it's just so hard. What can I do? So you're going to put it off and put it off, do really lousy research, turn in a philosophy paper, and it's going to suck, right? So you are fulfilling your own prophecy that that content is difficult. So read on about self-fulfilling prophecies and try to avoid them. Some other concepts I want to talk about that are not in your book include, okay, so let's do recency primacy. Okay, that means that a person's most recent behavior I put greater emphasis on. So I'm going to give positive feedback for the most recent behaviors that they've exhibited. So I'm going to build up their self-esteem by really focusing on what they did yesterday, last week. But I may fall victim to primacy, which means I'm not going to build up a person's self-esteem, because what I'm going to do is only think about the first impression I had. And that first impression was really bad. So it clouds every other behavior that person exhibits. Okay? Now, these can be reversed, right? Where you can see, well, the first time I met you, you knocked my socks off, you were dynamic, you were interesting, you knew your stuff, you could do no wrong. Recently, you do no wrong, because this is so powerful. I continue to just judge you by my first impression. Okay? So be careful, because these can be flipped. That's primacy recency. Another, and these are all scripts, by the way, as you hopefully you're seeing. Another thing that you can do is look at affirmations. And I want you to remember the Johari window And remember this box over here where people are giving you positive feedback that you have formerly discounted? Well, an affirmation is like this little document that I've just given you on your MBTI report. And remember those dots at the top where it identifies what are your natural talents, okay? That's an affirmation I'm giving you. And that's subjective based on years and years and years of clinical research, okay? So that, when I said make a little 3x5 index card and keep that and remind yourself of that, because that's going to be a way to affirm, to confirm, to reinforce those positive things about you, right? So always seek affirmations. And how do you respond when somebody says something good to you? Listen up. You say, thank you. Thank you. That's it, no more. All right? Now, if somebody, and the reason is because you don't want to immediately start to discount it. You don't immediately want to say, no, I'm not, nah, or you have to say that. No, you simply say, thank you. And in that moment, you kind of bask in the glory of receiving praise, okay? That's an affirmation. So seek them out sometimes if you need them, right? Miss Grind knows I'm kind of needy, so I need plenty of affirmations, and so she knows she has to give them to me once in a while. Okay, there's also what's known as the halo or horn effect. All right, so this is another script where, and it's very highly linked to this, but it's overshadowing everything else. If one person, excuse me, if a person does one thing for you that is so wonderful, you ignore everything that's not wonderful. Okay, that's called the halo effect. Person, can do no wrong again. Versus a person does one mistake, all right, one mistake, and you've not written. They can never make amends. They can never make it better because from that point on, you don't have time. Because you know in your brain, your script, that person is going to be worthless. Oh, bad things in our brains, bad things. Okay. The last one, and then we're going to do, oh, no, there's two more. One more is called the locus of control. Okay, locus of control. This is the location of where you believe control is all about you, all right? If you believe that you can control yourself and you can change yourself and you can grow and improve yourself, you can teach yourself, all right? You are in control, then your locus is internal. You have what's known as an internal, it's inside. You are master, mistress of your own future, your own actions, your own everything, all right? But if you think that shit happens to you, or you often say, hey, it wasn't my fault, or that person made me do this, okay? Then that means your locus of control is external. You don't take responsibility, which means you're always going to be a victim. Ugh! Nobody wants to be a victim. You want to be in charge, all right? So avoid the external locus of control. Really think about what you say and whether or not you take responsibility or do you blame it on somebody else, right? Because this does not make you look good. That does not make you grow and improve as a person. Okay, so that takes me to the last one, which is, let me look at my notes, face. Here's the rule of thumb. If you're going to give constructive criticism to somebody, which is going to cause negative face, going to cause that person, you can think of it as the face will get red and embarrassed. Excuse me. Do it in private. Okay? Coach, counsel, correct in private as much as you can. Positive face is going to cause a person to smile, to feel good, to eyes open up. And when you are enable a person to have positive face in front of others, you can praise in front of others. Be careful though, because some people don't want to be singled out as a culture. So for instance, if you look at cultures in Australia, there is in fact, one of my students did this. There is a culture of not wanting to appear better than anybody else. Okay, so it is countercultural to give praise, especially in front of others. That would really backfire and make a person then be subject to ridicule. Okay, so that's a cultural thing that you kind of look at in different parts of the world. But my rule of thumb is, if I was coaching a manager, is to make sure that if you are giving praise, that you do let a person feel good about it. So like when I pointed out Megan, now Megan may have felt like, oh, why did she say my name? Or she might have said, oh, okay, good, she noticed that I turned that in, right? So sometimes you have to know the people. And I don't know Megan very well. Megan, are you mad at me? Where's Megan? Okay, good. And then there's the people who just don't care. All right, and that's perfect. Okay, so we're done. I'm going to turn off the camera, and I would like for you